Customer care, the standard that defines professionalism. As we transition from commissions and compensation into the human side of real estate, we now focus on customer care, the heart of every transaction. This section ties together agency, disclosure, supervision, and risk management into one central idea. How you treat people determines your compliance, your reputation, and your success. Customer care is not just about service, it is about legal duty. Every interaction with a client or non-client carries obligations under Arizona law and the Commissioner's rules. In 2026, ADRE continues to emphasize that professionalism is measured not just by results, but by conduct throughout the transaction. This is where many complaints originate, not from contracts or commissions, but from communication breakdowns, unmet expectations, and failure to properly manage relationships. A buyer feels ignored during the transaction because the agent fails to return calls or provide updates. Even if the transaction closes successfully, the lack of communication may result in a complaint to ADRE. Customer care is not optional, it is a compliance issue. Client contact and appointments, setting the tone from the first interaction. The first interaction with a client sets the tone for the entire relationship. Brokers must ensure that agents are trained to handle client contact professionally, consistently, and in compliance with disclosure requirements. This includes prompt communication and follow-up, proper scheduling and documentation of appointments, clear explanation of agency relationships, professional conduct during showings and meetings. Example, an agent meets a buyer at an open house and begins discussing specific properties without first addressing agency disclosure. This creates confusion about representation and may lead to misunderstandings later in the transaction. In 2026, best practices include documenting initial contact, using standardized scripts for disclosures, and maintaining records of client interactions within the transaction file. Fiduciary duties to the client, the highest level of responsibility. When an agency relationship is established, the licensee owes fiduciary duties to the client. These duties represent the highest level of care and include loyalty, obedience, disclosure, confidentiality, accounting, reasonable care, and diligence. These duties are reinforced through case law such as Jennings versus Lee, which establish that agents must act in the best interest of their clients and fully disclose material information. A seller's agent receives an offer, but delays presenting it because they believe a better offer may come later. This violates the duty of loyalty and disclosure, as all offers must be presented promptly. Fiduciary duties are not flexible. They are absolute once agency is established. Obligation to the non-client, duty to deal fairly. While fiduciary duties apply to clients, licensees also owe obligations to non-clients. Under Arizona law, agents must deal fairly and honestly with all parties in a transaction. This means that even when representing one party, agents cannot mislead, conceal material facts, or act in a way that harms another party unfairly. Case law connection. Hill versus Jones, 1986, established that material defects must be disclosed, even when dealing with a non-client. This case remains one of the most important examples of the duty to disclose in Arizona real estate. A listing agent knows of a roof leak, but does not disclose it to the buyer because they represent the seller. This violates the duty to deal fairly and may result in legal liability. The key principle is balance. Advocate for your client, but never at the expense of honesty and fairness. Pursuant to AAC R428-1101, Professional Conduct and Communication, AAC R428-1101 establishes the standards of professional conduct for licensees in Arizona. This rule ties directly into customer care by requiring agents to exercise reasonable care and skill, communicate material information accurately, avoid misrepresentation, act in a manner that protects the public. In 2026, ADRE continues to enforce this rule as a foundation for disciplinary action. Many violations stem from failures in communication, inaccurate information, or lack of diligence. An agent provides outdated or incorrect information about a property's features. Even if unintentional, this may be considered a violation of professional conduct standards. Customer care and compliance are inseparable under this rule. Pursuant to AAC R428-802, Employment and Broker Responsibility, AAC R428-802 addresses the employment relationship between brokers and licensees, reinforcing that brokers are responsible for the actions of those working under them. This rule ties customer care directly back to supervision. Brokers must ensure that all agents are trained, monitored, and held accountable for how they interact with clients and the public. Example: an agent repeatedly fails to communicate with clients or mishandles transactions. If the broker does not address this behavior, the broker may face disciplinary action for failure to supervise. In 2026, this reinforces a key theme of this course. Customer care is not just an individual responsibility, it is a brokerage-wide standard enforced through supervision. Section Review: Bringing Customer Care into Compliance Focus. This section brings together the human and legal sides of real estate. Customer care is where agency, disclosure, and supervision all come to life in real-world interactions. We now see how everything connects. The agency defines relationships. Fiduciary duties define responsibilities. Fair dealing protects all parties. Professional conduct rules enforce behavior. Broker supervision ensures consistency. When customer care is handled correctly, transactions run smoothly. When it is not, complaints, disputes, and violations follow quickly. As we move forward, the next section will build on this by focusing on enforcement, disciplinary actions, and how brokers can proactively prevent issues before they escalate. Online discussion: why is customer care considered a compliance issue and not just a service issue? Answer: because it involves legal duties, communication standards, and professional conduct required under Arizona law and ADRE rules. What is the difference between fiduciary duties and the duty to deal fairly? Answer: fiduciary duties apply to clients and require loyalty and full representation, while the duty to deal fairly applies to non-clients and requires honesty and fairness. How does broker supervision relate to customer care? Answer: brokers are responsible for ensuring agents follow proper conduct, communication, and legal obligations under AAC R428-802 and R428-1103.